You're listening to
Path of the Jedi.
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this frazzled adventure. That's right, frazzled, absolutely frazzled. Yeah, not often does this happen. I'm usually fairly calm and collected. However, I'm pretty frazzled this week, and this will actually tie into the topic for today. Yeah, just because I'm not in my home environment where it's controlled, it's calm, and I can stick to my routine, and there's the structure that I've set up for myself for the last handful of weeks since the new year. It's allowed me to be super productive given all the stuff that I have to do, right? My incredible workload, of course, leading up to the masterclass that I'll be hosting at the end of the month. So yeah, just a tremendous amount of work, and then having a wrench thrown into it is it's tough to deal with. I'm not home. As I mentioned, I am actually at my parents' place, unscheduled, unplanned trip to visit mom and dad. And, had to, right? Like dad actually over the past weekend had to go to the hospital to get a procedure done. He's doing better. Like he's doing well. He's on the mend. He's on the up and up and should be home in the next day or two, that's the most important thing, right? So my sister and I drove down from the mountain to come visit mom and dad, to check in on them, make sure they're okay, and to tend to them. That said, again, it's completely taken me out of the routine, right? The structure that I've just, like, I was in a flow. I was in a state of flow. As I mentioned last week, I'm activated. I'm getting shit done, really accomplishing a lot towards my goals. And to have to, put that all kind of just, there was a big wrench thrown in it because, with travel alone, that takes a whole day. And a whole day in internet terms and in online terms is a lifetime, right? Modern technology moves at the speed of light. So I lost a day, and now I'm playing catch up. And especially it was Monday that we traveled. That's a big content creation day for me. That's what that day is set aside for. I'm really behind. I'm really frazzled, and on top of being behind, I'm not in my home environment. Again, I'm not in a controlled environment that I'm used to. There's outside factors. There's other people in the house. Of course, the dogs are more reactive because we're in the suburbs and there's noises that they're not used to. There's just so many things right now, and I'm about to lose it. No, I'm not about to lose it. It takes a lot for me to lose it. I'm just frazzled, that's all. I'm just frazzled because I'm trying to accomplish this stuff while having different circumstances thrown at me. That's neither here nor there. It's not a pity party, and I'm not here to garner your sympathies. I just want to explain why I'm frazzled. Everything is still moving. Obviously, this is going to be, if you're listening to this, it was released on time, or maybe around being on time. No, it'll still be released on time. So everything is well. I'm able to kind of stay on top of things. But with major adjustments. The content creation masterclass that I'm doing, it's actually called Influencer Masterclass. Just a shameless self-promotion here. If you're interested, it's February 27th through March 1st. Awesome. Like super excited. Again, I'm kind of in a bit of a frazzled state right now because I have this major launch coming. But it's far along, right? And despite being frazzled, I am still feeling very activated, feeling very motivated, because that's around the corner. And this is going to be like kind of a turning point in my career where I am launching myself and expanding into a new phase in my career, right? So if you want to learn about content creation and what it looks like to be an influencer, this is going to be a great masterclass for you. It's absolutely free, by the way. So this costs you nothing. It's a 3-day masterclass, all on Zoom, on February 27th through March 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, if you can't make those times, I know it's kind of a weird time of the day for a lot of people. There will be a recording, right? So if you register, there'll be a replay made available to you, and only 2 people that register. However, I'm not just gonna share this stuff on on out in the public platforms and the social feeds. This is exclusive to people who register. So if you're interested in it, if you're interested in learning how to leverage content creation, leverage social media to perhaps create a side income for yourself, or maybe even create a whole new career, I think that for me is one of the most exciting things about content creation and the internet, and especially like the social media space. It's a brave new frontier. So you can really create any kind of situation that you want to create, as long as you know the mechanisms of it, right? As long as you know the mechanisms of the platforms, and really what is going on between just the user space, the content creation space, and the audience space, as well as the business space, right? From a company standpoint. So if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a network marketer, especially network marketers, if you're already a content creator, right? Like if you're already in the space but want to learn how to really monetize and leverage that. This is super important. Even if you're just curious, again, for me, one of the biggest things I want to advocate moving forward as a coach and as a content creator, as somebody who's getting into the digital course world. It's to grow an influence, whether you use it or not, right? Whether you want to change careers, whether you want to monetize it, doesn't matter. But to have an influence, to build an influence online, will give you an asset that you could potentially parlay into, again, like I said, a brand new career for you, if you choose, right? I advocate everybody doing this. At least being purposeful and intentional with their content creation, so that they can grow their influence. Whether or not you decide to use that influence and leverage it for monetary gains, it's up to you. But at least to have that level of influence, and to have a followership, and to have an audience, that gives you more options down the road, right? That gives you more options. I'm all about having options in life. And so, again, that's why I'm such an advocate of content creation, and of using it purposefully, as opposed to being a content consumer. And so I'm going to continue to advocate that. Again, if this is something that you're curious about, and want to learn more, this influencer masterclass is for you. February 27th through March 1st, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be about an hour a day, so they're not that long. Happening on Zoom, and if you can't make it, make sure you register so that you get access to the replays. So that was a shameless self-promotion. I keep saying selfless. Well, because Frazzled, again, to talk about the actual topic for today, we're going to talk about Finn. Finn definitely, in my opinion, has a very kind of frazzled nature about him. He always seems to be frazzled in the way I observe him and watch him. And it's not a negative thing. I think it's actually one of his many endearing qualities. I think it comes from the fact that he seems to just be making it up as he goes, right? He's that kind of individual that's like, he doesn't have a plan. He just kind of falls into these situations, and he makes the best of them. And a lot of it is he has to adapt. And so he comes across as frazzled, right? He definitely comes across as frazzled, to me anyways. And that's one of the many reasons I love him. And of course, I love John Boyega's portrayal, the character that he's created in Finn. I think it's absolutely marvelous. I said selfless earlier when I meant to say shameless, but one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Finn today is the fact that he's pretty selfless individual. I know that when we first get introduced to him, and even talking about being frazzled and making it up as he goes, it seems like he's primary directive is self-preservation, and it's really not, right? Like when we see him, of course, he's running. He's escaped the Empire because he doesn't like. He's just there's something about not the Empire, the First Order that it just strikes him as funny. Like he just doesn't align with something innate within him. I think Nate. I think Finn has an innate. Has just never lost his innate. Compassion and empathy, and that's why he wanted to leave the First Order, right? And in doing so, it seems like it's for self-preservation and to get away from from just this evil thing that he's been indoctrinated into as a child, because these stormtroopers were pretty much abducted as children and brought into the system. when he lands on Jakku, again, it looks like, and on the surface, it looks like he's just, his primary motivation is self-preservation. But we see immediately, I mean, like, this is just early, very early into his journey. We see that he immediately he forgets that, he tosses that aside, the self-preservation, with the desire and the hopes for helping somebody in need, right? He didn't know Ray, right? He had no idea who this girl was, but he saw that she was being accosted and being attacked by the hooligans, and rushed to her aid, even though, very quickly saw that she could take care of herself. It was very selflessly motivated, right? So there's this deep selflessness about Finn that I absolutely love. Again, despite the fact of being frazzled and seeming to be motivated by self-preservation, and the sheer fact of that's why he's making it up as he goes. He just has this natural selflessness about him, and we even see it in the second movie, not Rise of the Jedi. What am I even talking about? The Last Jedi, where he was actually going to sacrifice himself, right? Like he was going to, he was in an act of self-sacrifice. He was going to blow up the cannon by driving his little speeder into it, to not necessarily save the rest of the resistance fighters, but to even buy them more time so that they can escape. Right? He was willing to lay down his own life, to do that. Right? And these are, a lot of these people are people he barely knows. I mean, when we see him in The Last Jedi, he's waking up from a coma, and he doesn't really have that much exposure to many of those people outside of Finn and Rose, right? Right, and of course, with General Organa and Ray, but Ray's not there. So he's about to sacrifice himself for a group of people that he barely knows. So he's not selfish. He's actually very, very selfless. And again, even in Rise of Skywalker, even though I'm not a huge fan of that movie. That movie to me was a little bit of a mess, from the story standpoint. I think yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. When it comes to Finn, just talking about Finn, I think they did him a little dirty and didn't give him enough. Again, it's just the messiness of the storytelling. There's so much that they tried to fit into that movie that they ignored so many other things. And Finn, I feel like being one of them. However, he's still given so many great moments in this film. Towards the end where it was his idea to do a ground assault on the top of the Star Destroyer, right? Like the Star Destroyer is in midair, and he says, "Well, we got to do a ground assault." His idea, and he even says, "Well, I don't want to do it, but I know we have to do it because it's the only way to take out the communication tower." So we see again, it's like these selfless act after selfless act after selfless act. It's really the beauty of Finn, especially given the context of how he was raised. Right? We know that he was raised in the First Order. The First Order, pretty much as far as we understood it or understand it, how they acquire all these stormtroopers is by abducting little kids or stealing little kids away from their family and then indoctrinating them into the system to become loyal and for lack of a better word, brainwashed stormtroopers. Again, indoctrinated into obedience and into buying these propaganda type ideals and belief systems. And despite all of that, Finn never lost his selflessness, right? Finn never lost his compassion and his understanding. And in fact, the thing that drives him to finally leave the First Order in the first place is because having witnessed having been given the order of wiping out an entire village of innocent people, he knew deep down, there was something deep down within him that told him that this is not right, right? Right. So yeah. There was even despite his risking his own neck by not firing on those villagers, risking himself by leaving. Right. Like again, it might seem like an act of self-preservation, but it was pretty selfless. Right. It was pretty selfless in that regard. and part of compassion and empathy is having compassion for self. I mean, being in that kind of I mean, for lack of a better word, toxic, right, in that kind of environment, being raised and indoctrinated into those belief systems and those ideologies, he knew was a situation that was as dangerous for himself as it was for other people. So, the root of compassion does also mean having compassion for oneself and knowing that, okay, I'm not in a situation that's good for me. I'm definitely not in a situation that's good for other people because, hey, they were just giving me the order to exterminate this entire village, execute this entire village of innocent people. So I got to get out of this, right? I got to get out of this. And in doing so, in having compassion for himself, and again, in that act of self-preservation, leaving the First Order, he's actually able to really kind of find and fully express himself, that selfless side of himself, that compassionate and that empathetic side for himself. He would not have been able to do that otherwise had he stayed as a stormtrooper, because you're not allowed to have your own thoughts as a stormtrooper if those ideas and thoughts and beliefs did not align with the philosophies of the First Order, right? And I mean, I get it. I'm not really going to get into like the geopolitical side of it, of the indoctrination of, bringing order and peace to the galaxy and all that stuff, right? Like we definitely see that happening in our world, on the planet Earth in the modern age. I mean, we've seen it in past ages, and we see it happening currently. So I think that's a different conversation for a different time. I think Finn is an important character and example in that. That there is, again, despite being indoctrinated, despite being raised, right, raised in that type of environment, we see that he never lost that humanity within himself, right? And that's something I firmly believe. I did a talk earlier today on Facebook. I do Facebook Lives every day currently at the moment. I don't know how long I'm going to sustain that given my workload. But I've been going live every day on Facebook for the last 45 days. And one of the things I talked about is that I think we all just have an innate humanity, and that I've never, well, I said this. This was my quote. I can never, what's the word I was looking for? That my faith in humanity can never be restored because it was never lost in the first place. All right? My faith in humanity can never be restored because it was never lost in the first place. I very much believe in the goodness of man, right? Like, I have a lot of faith in humanity. I think we all have that innate compassion, empathy for each other, and it's just a matter of remembering it. And for Finn, he never lost it, I think, and he just kind of, well, to go back to being indoctrinated as a child and being abducted as a child, I think he never lost that, right? He never lost that childlike spirit and nature about him, and this childlike kind of curiosity. I mean, he definitely has as he approaches the world and outside of the First Order, he has this kind of naivete about him, and that's because he just was never exposed to a lot of stuff that he's seen. However, I think there's also that side of him that has always been able to kind of maintain his humanity, his compassion. That's something that I think we all have innate within us. And because of how we're raised, because of the things that we experience and the things that we go through, our traumas, big and small, that innocence and that childlike nature, that compassion for others and compassion of self can definitely be buried and be forgotten. It's something that we should remind ourselves more of, and Finn is a great example of that. Part of it then is for sure self-preservation. I mean, if you see yourself or you see others in a situation that's unhealthy, especially in terms of the ideas and the ideologies and the belief systems that are being I don't want to say what's the word I'm looking for? That are being propagated. Maybe that's not the right word either, but you know what I mean. Ideas, ideologies and belief systems that might be destructive, that go against actual compassion, and it's easy, right? It's easy to tell. It's easy if you really tap into your own inner compassion and empathy. It's easy to tell when we're being less than human. The one thing you can do is get yourself out of that, right? If you're in that situation, the first person that we can show compassion for is ourselves, right? Is ourselves, and that's why Finn is an amazing example, because he does that, right? And that's his self-preservation. That's his escape from the First Order. And then again, like I said earlier, escaping from that and freeing himself from the constraints of those ideologies and those belief systems allows him to more fully express his compassion and his humanity in those selfless acts that he continually over and over again displays. We all have that within us, right? We all have that within us, and it's just a willingness to challenge not just belief systems of the communities that we're a part of, but our own belief systems as well, right? I think that's even more important, because if we're not questioning our own belief systems, then we're just buying. We may be buying into belief systems that aren't fully compassionate, that aren't fully that might not be that might have a little less humanity in them, right? Ideologies and belief systems that might be less than compassionate towards other people. I think the root of it is would for me the philosophy is, would I treat myself the way I'm about to treat this other person, right? That's a great rule of thumb. And if the answer is no, then you got to really question what belief system and what ideologies are driving the way you treat that other person. This is the conversation that Finn stirs up in me, because again, he questioned all of that, right? And that's why he left. He questioned why they were given the order to exterminate an entire village of innocent people. He questioned their motives. He questioned being part of this governing body that was supposed to bring peace and order to the galaxy, but instead seemed to be inflicting more hurt and violence on it rather than not. Right, so just raising that level of awareness and being able to challenge, and having the willingness to challenge those belief systems and ideologies within yourself, so that you can show more compassion towards self, and eventually express that compassion towards others. Right, that's the trajectory for me that Finn illustrates in his journey, and I believe he's one of my favorite characters, and I honestly think he's one of the most important characters in the sequel trilogy. Again, we can talk about, and this part of it is opinion, but we can talk about how the Rise of Skywalker did him dirty. And just paid attention. It gave so much attention to other things that were really, I think, frivolous. And extraneous. I think extraneous might be the right. I'm really frazzled, and I'm less articulate than normal. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not gonna. This is not gonna be a rant about Rise of Skywalker. However, it's gonna be about Finn and how awesome this character is, how much I love Finn, and I hope he gets more treatments, whether it's through the comics or a show, or even in future movies. Finn more than deserves, because he's such a great character, and because he exemplifies what I believe is the best in all of us. I think more so than any other character in the sequel trilogy. Yeah, he's definitely up there. And for those reasons, I really want to see more of him. I hope to see more of him in future Star Wars media. So, that's the talk for this week. Be more like Finn. We all need to be more like Finn, because he is the bomb. He's amazing, and yeah, he just illustrates and exemplifies so much humanity, and it's something that I think we can always, no matter who you are, we can always do a lot more of ourselves. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. Yeah, frazzled. I don't know how much bells and whistles I'm going to be able to put on here, but I do want to give a shout out. I can't forget the shout out, right? Okay, so this week's shout out goes to a podcast called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text with host Matt Potts and Vanessa Zoltan. That's right, Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Okay, I know it's not a Star Wars podcast, but hear me out. No, I love this show. And you guys know me. You know that I love to give shout outs and I love to celebrate people and the things that they're doing. This is an incredible show. Very much. Okay, so let me backtrack. I found this show back in 2021 during the holidays. When I was doing the Path of the Wizard, right? I did a special holiday segment here on the show called Path of the Wizard, just to kind of shake things up. And, in doing my research on that, I wanted to search out other Harry Potter podcasts because, I know J.K. Rowling is a stickler to, like, rights and making sure that everybody is not infringing on her intellectual property. So I didn't know if that was a territory that I would be treading potentially with copyright laws. So I found this one particular show. I mean, it's called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, for crying out loud. So I knew I would be okay with Path of the Wizard. But what they do is they talk about the books, right? They do the Harry Potter text from the books. And they go chapter by chapter, book by book, and they kind of dissect it from what the characters are going through, the lessons, the different themes within those chapters, and the experiences that the characters are going through. They even do, I think it's etymology. I think that's the word. The word that means the study of words, or whatever that is. But you guys know what I mean. It's a great podcast, and they do so well with it. It's so, like, I really feel like I'm such a hack when I listen to their show and then I compare it to mine. Of course, I know we shouldn't compare because I definitely have my own style and my own, I bring my own unique gifts to the table. But they're just so good. They're so refined and they're so put together, and the show is so eloquent and succinct in the content, and again, it just brings such great lessons, and it elevates the text to a whole new level where not only are you getting an entertainment value from the text itself, because I mean, I haven't read all the books for Harry Potter, but they're incredibly entertaining. So there's that kind of surface level of it, but there's so much depth to it. Again, when you are able to examine the characters and their journeys and tie it to our own experience here, our own life experiences. I think that's what makes good fiction and good literature is to see how much of it really reflects our own experience in life, right? Like that's all it is, right? That's all art is. It's a reflection of life, and so the Harry Potter source material is amazing for that, and there's so much that you can examine and dive into, and Matt and Vanessa do such an amazing job at that with this show, Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. So I encourage you to check it out when you can. If you're looking for another podcast, this is a great one. I absolutely love it. They're just so good. I don't know. You just have to hear it. You have to hear it to see what I'm talking about. Well, you have to hear it to know. To understand what I'm talking about. It's really worth at the very least checking out, but definitely for me it's more than worth giving a shout out to. So Matt and Vanessa, I appreciate everything that you do with that show, the Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Please keep it up. You're doing the world a great service in showing up every week with the content that you bring, the very kind of elevated content that you bring to the table. So I appreciate you. I want to celebrate you, and I want to give this week's shout out to you. So Matt and Vanessa over there at Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, this week's shout out goes to you. All right, well, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with my frazzled state. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Finn and make sure I got this episode out just to remind us, even myself, of our innate humanity and to not ever forget that that compassion is something that we can always have. Empathy is something that we can always have, and it's a good guide to know whether what you're about to do is wrong or right. Right, so let that inner compass guide you. Let that inner compassion and inner empathy, your inner Finn, if you will. Let that guide you to making good decisions and be a good human in a human family, right? Because we're all connected and we're all part of a larger whole. So anyways, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, thank you so much for allowing me this space. I know I've said this a lot, but it's as much for myself as it is for all of you. It might even be more for myself than it is for you, but you guys listen anyway. So thank you so much. We will definitely catch you next week with a fresh new episode. So until then, be well, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.